Tonight on KTCA Reports, making money or losing money the easy way, betting. As a state, we are betting billions of dollars a year. Why and at what cost? We'll travel to Minnesota's largest casino to see where 500 million of our wagered dollars are going. And we'll learn about those who got in too deep. Compulsive gamblers are gaining in numbers. Those issues plus your calls next on KTCA Reports.
Major funding for this edition of KTCA Reports is provided by the McKnight Foundation, responding to the needs of individuals and communities. Additional funding is provided by Ryder, Bennett, Egan, and Arundel, providing timely, aggressive, and cost-effective legal services.
There's one sure bet tonight. In the next hour, you will learn something about the amount of money wagered in Minnesota that will either impress you or inflame you. The stakes are high. Minnesota has the largest charitable gambling industry in the nation, with over $1 billion bet each year. Overall, Minnesotans bet $558 per person per year. That makes us the fourth highest in the country, behind Nevada, New Jersey, and South Dakota. And so you don't feel alone, consider this. 60% of all Minnesota adults have gambled during the last year. And despite the high-tech advancements in the betting business, we as a state prefer to do it by hand, as KTCA's Jim Bickle reports.
You want 2 rolls of nickels? Okay, here you go. Got some dollars and change, good luck.
Gambling in Minnesota has been an amazing phenomenon over the last decade. Pull tabs, which are now the most popular form of gambling, were legalized in 1981. In 1985, when Canterbury Downs opened, $195 million were legally wagered in Minnesota. By 1987, that figure had more than tripled to $671 million. In 1989, casinos were opening on Indian reservations all over the state, and total wagering was estimated at over $1 billion for the year. By the end of 1991, the state lottery was in full swing, and wagering was estimated at $2.5 billion.
Well, I think everybody liked to play because I always teased my husband. I said, well, if we won the big lottery, we wouldn't have to go up to the casino. And he said, well, that's when I go. so I guess even if you got a lot of money, you like to come and just test your luck.
In the history of Minnesota, there's been exactly one person who was hired to oversee gambling for the state, and he isn't exactly a fan.
After 17 months, I finally concluded that gambling is a painless tax, and taxes should be painful, that attempt to achieve noble ends, environment, creation of jobs, education, through basically sinful means. And if philosophy teaches us anything, it teaches us that you can't do that.
Whether Bozo likes it or not, gambling is generating a lot of revenue. Here's an idea of what percentage of every dollar bet that's not returned in prizes, but kept by the house. The state is allowed to keep up to 45% of lottery sales. Charitable bingo games keep roughly 30%. Canterbury Downs hangs on to 20%. Pull tab operators keep 15 to 20%. And video slot machines are allowed to retain between 2 and 20% of everything that's put in. A lot of that money is going to worthy causes, but Boza argues it's not the right way for the government to raise money.
The reason why we have a government is so that it should debate where the money should come from and debate where it goes to, and it ought to be an agonized debate where we're constantly prioritizing and evaluating. Even in the lottery, for example, it dedicates its funds without debate to the environment, to the creation of jobs, and to educational plan. I think that's rubbish. I think they ought to be debating them. The whole idea of dedicated funds makes no sense. It makes the government unnecessary.
Oh, here we go, babe.
The most popular games in Minnesota appear to be the ones that offer instant gratification and are based entirely on luck. 48% of the dollars wagered in Minnesota last year were spent on charitable gambling, primarily pull tabs. 36% went to the Indian casinos, 12% of the lottery, and only 4% was wagered on the horses at Canterbury Downs, which is arguably the place for the most sophisticated gamblers. Do you play do you play the lottery or?
I play the lottery
Yeah.
a lot, every week.
How have you done in that?
Not good. I've never won. How's that?
And you're not discouraged?
No,
I see. Well, why do you keep playing?
because there's always that one-time chance.
The fastest growing part of the Minnesota gaming scene is casino gambling on the reservations. An estimated $900 million were wagered at the casinos last year.
Gambling appears to be the best vehicle that the American Indian has ever had for economic self-sufficiency in America. And as I ask in my report, the key question is, will the white man allow that to go on? My guess is they will not.
Another growing concern is that we could be creating a disturbing number of compulsive gamblers. Why do you think gambling is so popular now?
I don't know. Sometimes I wish we didn't have it because you do get kind of addicted to it. But then again, everybody has to fight their own battles with that, you know.
For KTCA Reports, I'm Jim Bickle reporting.
Joining us now to discuss gambling in Minnesota is State Representative Jeff Bertram. He's a DFLer from Paynesville who supported legalized gambling throughout his legislative career. Don Feeney is the Research and Planning Director of the State Lottery and finds his department in the headlines occasionally for ideas to promote and expand the lottery. Linda Cole is the Director of the Strategic and Long-Range Planning Office that's just completed a study of legal gambling in Minnesota. And Representative Jim Rice is a North Minneapolis DFLer who is strongly opposed to gambling. Now, to join our discussion, call 229-1400. Please hold your questions and comments about Indian gaming and compulsive gambling for later in the program. Linda Cole, I'd like to open the discussion with you. Your department has just issued sort of a first-of-its-kind exhaustive study about gambling in Minnesota. What sort of things are we going to learn in this that might surprise us?
I guess I was a little surprised to find that Minnesota is first in the nation in both charitable gambling and tribal gambling. We found that gambling in 1991 was a $2.5 billion industry in Minnesota, and that's nearly as great as all of the state's eating and drinking establishments. As you said, gross sales were $558 per capita, but when you calculate the paybacks and the prizes, the gross losses were $117 per person last year. We found that tribal gaming has grown to about $900 million wagered annually, and that gamblers' net losses after prize payouts are about $180 million.
Has this industry exceeded everybody's wildest expectations?
I think it has grown faster than most people thought it would, and I think the magnitude and the scope of it is surprising.
Representative Rice, you're concerned about this explosion.
Yes, I'm concerned because I don't think that the government ought to, by its actions, to be encouraging gambling. And I think individually, we try to teach our children and those for whom we feel responsible to study and to work hard. And our whole culture and the hype that goes with this indicates that life somehow becomes a matter of chance rather than hard work. Additionally, I find that those, particularly with the lottery and the pull tabs and the taxes that come therefrom, come more from lower income people than from people of moderate and well means.
I think Mr. Feeney, who represents the lottery, would like to address that. But first, we have some statistics about the lottery that we'd like to give you about just where does the money from the Minnesota State Lottery go. Since its beginning in April of 1990, the lottery has generated $525 million in gross sales. It's paid out $294 million in prizes and spent $90 million in operating and advertising expenses. $96 million has gone into the general fund for items ranging from education to property tax relief. $43 million is in the Natural Resources Trust Fund. Well, Don Feeney, I'd like to ask you about how some of this money is being spent. We hear that $400,000, for example, has been spent for a study on timber available for cutting. $2.7 million spent for aerial mapping and inventory of resources, including wetlands. You know, This is anything I can kind of put my hands on. Where exactly is this, how exactly is this money being spent?
Well, certainly some of it are projects that you can put your hands on. For example, some of the Environmental Trust Fund money is currently being used for developing a recreational trail between Brainerd and Bemidji, the Paul Bunyan Trail. The decision on where the money from the Environmental Trust Fund is spent is made by a legislative commission. We at the lottery have absolutely no say, nor should we have any say, as to where that money goes. The Environmental Trust Fund was set up as a device for long-range environmental programs, and certainly initially that involves a lot of research, a lot of planning. My friends in the environmental community tell me that these projects are critically important, that there is so much that we do not know about the state of Minnesota's environment, that this sort of very basic work has to be done first before we get into some of the more glamorous programs.
So it's kind of ironic in a way that gambling, which everybody talks about is a quick thing, you know, you win, you lose, is benefiting something that has these long-term cosmic proportions to it.
Right.
Kevin, may I add a voice of dissent?
Please.
We had trails before we had the lottery. We were one of the best environmental states. What you've neglected to say is it was sold to the people that 50% of the money would be used for business development and 50% would be used for the environment. The 50% for business development is gone and goes to the general fund. We've gone from 50 to 40% in environment. And if I could go down item by item, the very things that we're talking about, aerial mapping, development of trails, the Willard Munger Trail. This trail that he's talking about's been on our planning board for years. It's part of the scam, part of the sham that goes with gambling.
Well, we'll let State Representative Bertram hop in here because you've been supportive of gambling. You don't think it's a scam and a sham.
I think, Kevin, we have three forms of gambling. One, we have the legalized, regulated forms of gambling that we as a state government have instituted, such as the lottery, the charitable gambling, and some other forms of gambling, the horse racing industry, and things like that, the pari-mutuel betting. Then, of course, we have the casino gambling that's going on that we as a state did not directly interfere with or revolve into, but was done by compact. And then, of course, we have the third form of gambling, that's the illegal forms of gambling. The top 10 forms of gambling that are taking place in this state, there's 5 or 6 of them that are illegal gambling, number one being sports betting. So what do we do? Do we ignore the fact that that's happening, or do we take the fact that the average Minnesotan is going to want to spend X number of dollars on gambling, put it in a form that can be in several different areas, bring it above board, put it on top of the table, and regulate it, tax it, and more importantly, help those people that may need help.
I'm sure critics would say, though, that there are any number of vices that the state could get in on and make some money on, but then there becomes this moral component that Representative Rice is discussing. We have a caller who wants to add his voice. Don is calling. Good evening, Don.
Yes, good evening. I would like to ask a two-part question. First of all, how many people have been hired to work in the state lottery? Number 2 is how much money is spent on advertising for the state lottery?
Okay. We have approximately 180 people working for the lottery around who are located both in our central office and around the state. Advertising is restricted by law to, I believe it's 2 3/4% of sales. I don't know off the top of my head what that works out to.
Now, I've heard that between what you get from the people that sell it, and that there's a number that's $40 million for advertising and well, let's get beyond this.
Okay.
Obviously, it's going to be a lot of money. I mean,
sure.
Those spots are on TV and radio like all the time. Is it wrong for the state to promote something that clearly is a vice? I mean, gambling is considered a vice.
I don't think so, because of course there's a number of issues. One thing, we've been primarily talking about the lottery, but also there's other forms of gambling like charitable pull tabs that help out areas like I represent, Painesville and more rural parts. But the lottery, the one problem that people have with lottery is because it doesn't look and act like a state agency. And the reason it doesn't look and act like a state agency is because it's making money. Unlike not like any other agency, the vans and the car phones and the promotion and the bonuses and everything else that the lottery gets. The general public looks at it and goes, wait a minute, we shouldn't be doing that. And yet it's done every day up and down corporate America to encourage that type of activity. And so the advertising, we did regulate how and what type of advertising. The incentives, we've regulated somehow. There's some things that I necessarily didn't support with the lottery that I would have liked to see some things change. But overall, that's the biggest problem I think the public has, because they're looking at it as a government agency where normally we fund them and within 2 years they're broke and then we refund them.
We have another call now from John. Good evening, John.
Good evening. I find it very curious. Does this gentleman who is defending and promoting the use of lottery and the participation through advertising have children?
I have three, two girls and a son.
Do you think it's appropriate? Would you, for example, encourage your progeny to involve themselves in this sort of thing and to spend whatever kind of money they have, even if it exceeds that which they could reasonably afford, such as many of the homeless people, not homeless, I shouldn't say that, but perhaps the less fortunate, the minimum wage people who are looking for that pie in the sky? Is that the sort of thing that you would expect or encourage your children to do if they were in such a condition?
The question really is, does this prey disproportionately on the poor?
And I say it does. As an example, in Dick Jefferson's district, which is the near north side of Minneapolis, the sales were $6.3 million.
Now that's an economically depressed area.
Yeah, and in Edina, it's $664,000. A factor of 10. I'll agree that some of those outlets are closer to the downtown area. It's a regressive tax. It's played by every study that I've ever seen, Delaware, Michigan, more by poor people than it is by others. And I just think that when you talk about the whole thing on the advertising, it's just offensive, I think, to common sense and to our taste.
Very quickly, because I'm sure that somebody wants to rebut what you're saying in terms of this preying on the poor.
But real quickly, being that the caller asked me specifically,
Sure.
my family, I have a college account set up for all three children. I'm of the opinion that we turn around and my children, the morals that I teach our children, are hopefully going to be the same that I was taught. My father told me from when I was a boy of drinking age, he said, if you want to have a beer, have it in front of me, have it with me. In a sense, of course, not of saying, you're not going to gamble, you're not going to drink, you're not going to do that. Any other devices. I was brought up in a society where we did everything in moderation. I will certainly teach my children to do the same. But for the caller to insinuate that if we ignore it, if we put it away and we don't legalize it, that the top, like I said, 5 or 6 forms of gambling that are going on right now illegally are going to go away, of course not. It's just like the bootlegging days. It's going to be here. And I want to regulate. I want to seek out those individuals that the caller referred to that need the help, that can't control themselves, and try to help them. Along the way, though, don't take it away from folks like us that have a controlling, that can control how much we gamble and what we do.
We will be talking about those people that you refer to later in this program. Thank you all very much for joining us. We're going to move on now. Let's shift our focus now to a new relationship that's formed in Minnesota as a result of gambling. That's the relationship between state lawmakers and Native Americans who operate casinos on reservations. Leaders of the State Indian Gaming Association went before a Senate hearing last week to answer critics' claims that Indian reservation gambling has too few controls. Speakers laid out details on how the Indian-run casinos are regulated and operated. They even rolled out video gambling machines to show how security devices could prevent cheating. And they told senators about the badly needed jobs and incomes gambling has brought to the reservations and praised their dealings with state officials.
The state of Minnesota and the Indian reservations are the leaders in the United States in the relationship from tribal sovereignty and also from tribal government to the state government. We have a very positive relationship.
Well, who would have guessed that just a few years ago, the solution to the economic depression on Minnesota's Indian reservations would come in the form of blackjack tables and video slot machines, but it has. Unemployment rates near 50% on some casino reservations have been eliminated. More than half of the Indian casinos in America are in Minnesota, and more are being built. Jim Bickle took a look at the largest one in the state, and here's what he found.
A few years ago on this site, there was a little bingo hall that barely broke even. Now the Grand Casino, offering blackjack tables, video gambling, as well as bingo, is making millions of dollars a year. Even at noon on a Monday, it attracts a good-sized crowd.
Well, how's your luck today?
Not too great.
I see. How long have you been here?
Since 4 o'clock this morning.
Wow. Got up pretty early, huh?
Didn't go to bed. How's that?
Have you been here before? Or,
one time before, and I won real good then.
I see.
But not today.
The management company that runs the casino for the Mille Lacs Band gets 40% of the profits. They won't say how much those profits are. A new accounting study reports that 5 Minnesota casinos, including Grand Casino, grossed a total of $138 million last year. The casino has expanded twice since opening less than a year ago and is in the process of building a new addition that will more than double the size of the casino. The chief executive of the Mille Lacs Band is Marge Anderson. She says opening the casino was something her band couldn't pass up.
Prior to the gambling, we had a high unemployment rate. Our poverty level was, we were at the bottom of the heap, you know, for a poverty level, and you had to make a choice, you know. It's do that or continue to live in that you know, in that level. And for me, I want what's best for the people.
3.5 years ago, the Mille Lacs Band hired Doug Twait as its Commissioner of Corporate Affairs. He works directly with the management company that runs the casino. He says casinos on reservations came into being because of the state law that allows charities to hold occasional casino nights.
Well, in a California case in 1987, the Cabazon case generally set forth the parameters that if an activity is permissible in a state but regulated, that same activity can happen on an Indian reservation without those same state regulations.
That lack of regulation means that on a reservation, they can essentially have a casino night 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It also means they don't pay any taxes, and they have to do a lot of their own policing. The state of Minnesota has only 2 full-time people doing background checks on casino employees and investors. By comparison, the state of New Jersey employs over 400 people in the area of casino control. But Twait argues that in Minnesota there are plenty of checks on potential corruption.
We're regulated both at the federal level, the National Indian Gaming Commission, and then we're regulated at the state level via the Video Game of Chance Compact and the Blackjack Compact. And on top of that, a third level of regulation comes from the tribe itself. So I would argue that we're probably even more heavily regulated here in this facility than most places out in Atlantic City and Las Vegas are.
We've got 4 different kinds of denominations. We've got nickels, quarters, dollars, and $5 machines. Almost all the nickel machines are filled right now. You can play a long time on the nickel machines before you really lose any significant money. And what we're finding is our people clearly are coming here for the entertainment experience.
Bob Swenson is the CEO of the Grand Casino Mille Lacs. He says 42% of the casino's employees are Native Americans. Most of them were previously unemployed.
So we have given those people an opportunity for employment. They're significantly bettering their life. They're building their self-esteem. And beyond that, with our training programs, we're training those people to move through the ranks of the casino. We're seeing a lot of very happy faces. That's one of the things that our guests tell us in the casino is all of the smiles on our employees. They see Native Americans working here who have smiles on their face, are happy that they're working.
Just a stone's throw from the casino is the Mille Lacs Tribal Contract School, where Native American students learn from a curriculum that emphasizes Ojibwe culture. The school is currently housed in a makeshift building that was designed as a community center, with offices rather than classrooms.
What we've done is we've kicked out the walls, so we've put a few offices together to create classrooms. As you go around later in the building, you'll be able to see what we've done, and you'll be able to see the difference where the carpet changes from one wall to the next. So we've got a series, maybe of 3 long, skinny classrooms in this building.
The Mille Lacs Band voted recently to use their profits from the casino to secure a loan so they can build a new school and make other improvements in the infrastructure of the reservation.
Do you like the fact that the money goes to the Native American band here? Does that make a difference to you?
Well, that's the only consolation you get when you lose is that it's going for a good cause.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like giving charity with having a good time, too.
David Sam is a teacher at the Tribal Contract School and has lived on the reservation for 40 years. He says some members of his band thought opening the casino was a bad idea.
Some people do, yeah. They think it's really bad, but the people, they don't think first of what is happening here before they talk, you know, before they speak. They should talk about, think about what happened before, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, when we used to go to the social, welfare department and get our groceries. I remember one time when I was getting $17.50 a month, and I had to make that last whole month. So now that we are doing our own thing and our own taking care of our own finances, you know, it's really good. It's coming on.
For KTCA Reports, I'm Jim Bickle at the Grand Casino, Mille Lacs.
And joining us with more on this subject of gambling on Indian reservations is Leonard Prescott, chairman of the Little Six gambling operation on the Prior Lake Metawakatan Sioux Reservation. Melanie Benjamin is the commissioner of administration of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe that operates Grand Casino. We've asked Linda Cole to stay here with statistics on Indian gaming. And John Berglund is here. He's with the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association that represents bar and restaurant owners who would like gambling in their facilities. Well, John, let's open it up with you. Now, you're all for gambling, but you just don't think that it's quite fair that the reservations are getting all those dollars.
Well, Kevin, our industry has never asked for gambling in Minnesota. We've never asked for the lottery. We've never asked for charitable gambling. We've never asked for the casinos. All we've asked for is that if you're going to have it, such as a lottery or whatever, please include us. Because if you don't, we're going to have an economic depression. People only have so many dollars to spend on food and beverage over the weekend or whatever, or entertainment. And if they're going to spend that at a casino, they're not going to spend that in our establishments. And the problem is we cannot compete with the casinos. We compete all the time with restaurants and other taverns. At the casinos, however, they have gaming activities, which we do not have, and they can use the proceeds from that, which are not taxed by the state, to reduce the cost of food and beverage.
So what specifically would you like?
What we have asked for as of last year, and we're looking very much this year, is a proposal called video lottery. Allows us to have just simply one form of gaming. We're not asking to shut down the casinos because it probably won't happen. We're just asking to let us be included to try to retain some of the customer traffic. Each machine in the video lottery is connected, like in South Dakota and Oregon, is connected by telephone wire to the state lottery department.
So any guy who owns a bar or tavern, or woman for that matter, can have some of these machines?
Would have to apply for a license, and if they qualify, go through the hoops, yes, they could have it.
Any problem with that? Leonard or Melanie?
I think that, in particular, the federal bill entitled gave the Indians the right to gamble on the reservations. It's a federal bill that was enacted for strong tribal development for strong tribal government. Excuse me, I'm getting lost on this, but on the level playing field, let me answer that one. On the level playing field, the United States government has signed more than 4,000 treaties with Indian nations, almost all of them involving the purchase of lands, and that one of them has remained unbroken. I think that the Indians have been treated unfairly for over 200 years, and it's time that they have an opportunity to get involved in an economy. The gaming bill has given Indian governments the biggest economic development tool that has been on reservations ever, and I think that it's doing positive things not only for the reservation, but for the state.
It's made a big difference for your
It
tribe.
has. I agree with what Leonard has said too, and to address some of his issues as well, I think it's one example of history repeating itself. When there is some kind of economic prosperity on the reservations, the non-Indian community sees that and wants to take a part of that away from the Indian community, especially for the Mille Lacs Reservation, where we had, earlier what some of the reports had said we had 50% unemployment, and now we're virtually zero unemployment. And even the economic offspin from what's going on in Mille Lacs has, benefited the communities. And you look at we have 11 tribes in the state of Minnesota, and each of those tribes have gaming facilities. And the economic prosperity has benefited each of those economic areas within the state of Minnesota. So there has been a geographical, benefit
Let me ask you, Linda Cole, the state right now is not really in a position of wanting to expand gambling any further than it is.
Governor Arne Carlson has made it clear that he is not inclined to look favorably on any kind of expansion of gambling. I might also point out that the electronic video gaming that you've been requesting is considered one of the most addictive kinds of gambling, and if that comes to Minnesota, we might expect to see the rates of compulsive gambling rise.
But Kevin, we have that gaming now in Minnesota in all of the casinos. All we're asking for is not an expansion, but a redistribution. The historic perspective that Leonard has given us is very important, and we all understand that and are learning it and are sympathizing with it. But it doesn't do a lot to the person who invested their life savings in a restaurant bar a few years ago. Now the rules have changed with the casinos coming on board, and they're going out of business. Will the video lottery put the casinos out of business if we get into bars or restaurants? Of course not. Look at Las Vegas. The casinos exist. The bars around them have video machines. The casinos do fine.
We have a caller who wants to join in this conversation. Dennis, I believe it is. Hello, Dennis.
Hello.
Question?
Well, you know, what I'd like to know is that, first of all, the not only Minnesota, but the federal government seems to be building a 4-lane highway that's basically going to end right at their doorstep.
In Mille Lacs, right?
Exactly, Highway 169. The thing that strikes me as odd, and I'd like to know, is exactly now that they've got this newfound income coming into the reservation, are we in fact, the federal government, still subsidizing the reservation up there?
Either one of you?
Well, a lot of the programs that we have are federal programs, but also the economic revenues that we're generating is supporting those programs as well.
I'd like to also point out that we have, since we've been involved in gaming, contributed over $2 million to the state government outside the reservation, and we've employed 1,200 people now. They all pay state and federal taxes. We expect that we'll be getting, probably by the middle of the summer, 2,000 employees. They will all pay state and federal taxes. All of this comes without an investment from the state of not even a nickel. It is merely using the gaming operations to benefit both parties.
Now, I know at your operation you have a management company.
Yes,
so some of this money, they get, what, 40% right off the top?
No, 40% is, and 40 and 60% cut, and that's after the expenses.
So, but at your operation, there is no management company involved, right?
No, there's not.
So at some point, will you be able to get all that money, or will you?
Our contract is for 7 years, and our band assembly, who is the tribal council of Mille Lacs Reservation, is not in, does not run businesses. Their responsibility is the lawmaking of the reservation, and had felt that the management company was the most feasible way to go for the Mille Lacs Reservation.
I'd like to point out that Scott County was giving the reservation $200,000 a year in welfare payments before bingo came. From that time, if we would have had continued, we would have taken $2 million from the state of Minnesota in welfare benefits, which we no longer do. There is no welfare on the reservation. And I think that's an important fact to consider. Also, the expansion that we have now has caused 300 to 400 jobs for construction workers. They are all contributing with state and federal taxes that are being taken out of their payroll taxes. And I think this goes on and on and on, depending on the vendors that we get involved with, which is what now it's $900 million that we've put into the economy in a time of recession, and I think that's positive. I think the thing that the state has to consider before they get involved in gambling is, if you can't control a $1.6 billion economy in charitable gaming, how are you going to control maybe a $10 billion economy? That's when you're going to get the prostitution, that's when you get organized crime, that's when you'll get those kinds of things.
We have a
happening.
question from a caller, Carl. I guess Carl, your question is kind of how is all this kept clean, basically?
Well, I'm calling in regard to Treasure Island down at Hastings or Welch.
We don't really have anyone there from that organization, but do you have a question about that?
I have a question to anybody that knows anything about slot machines. These slot machines in Treasure Island are being regulated by monitoring upstairs in a control room. They are not a game of chance. Definitely not.
Well, I don't know if we can address that, but how do you keep, how do you make sure that it's fair when you
They
go
all
in?
have to go through a testing lab. There's a chip in each one of those machines that is regulated. You have to pay a percentage between 86 and 98%. They're tested at the lab before they come into the state, before they're even allowed into the state. None of the tribal officials or none of there's nobody that has control of the chip that comes in. It can't be changed. There are certain procedures where tape is put over them in case they're tampered with, so you know when they're tampered with. We spend $1 million in security devices to make sure that those machines are well protected.
Is there enough state oversight of this aspect, or can the state get involved in this, Linda? Should we have some sort of a gaming czar to overlook all these questions?
Well, that's several questions rolled into one, actually. The state does have some control over the tribal gaming through the use of the compacts and the negotiations that have been worked out, but in reality there is not a lot of further regulation that can be done because of the federal law and the unique situation that the tribal gaming operations have. As far as an overall regulation of gambling in Minnesota, we interviewed 18 experts and asked them about that question. And their feeling was that there is kind of a hodgepodge of regulation and different agreements, and that if gambling continues to grow,
and it's pretty likely,
and it looks like it is going to, that we should come up with some way to get a better handle on it.
We have, speaking of handles, that's another gambling term, we have Bob joining us now with a question for the people from the Indian reservations. Hi, Bob.
Hi, my question is, I'm trying to figure out why some of the casinos do have and serve liquor and other ones don't, referring to like Little Six or Morton I've been down to versus up at Mille Lacs.
That is a decision of our tribal council. We felt that our facility was right in the heart of the reservation in District 1, that the legislative body makers decided that that's something that they didn't want at the Grand Casino Mille Lacs.
At Little Six, I think that's also the choice of the tribe not to be involved in liquor, and don't feel that it would be positive for the casino at this point.
Leonard, you have said in the past that this is a window for your people, that it's not going to last forever. You need to make some smart investments and make some smart business moves. And yet everything would indicate that it just gets bigger and bigger. Is there an end in sight for this for you, do you think?
Well, possibly. I think that if the competition may certainly happen if the state decides to get into it. On the other hand, I think that if it is looked at as it should be nationally, I think it has positive implications for the state and for the reservations, and as a tourist attraction brings a little bit of that entertainment dollar to all states. And so if there were a third industry, I think I was reading in a wagering and gaming magazine that there was room for actually another center in the United States. And I think that if we distribute it that well, and it were Indian reservations, I think all states have an opportunity to become involved in that.
Obviously this has been good for your people.
Positive.
Has there been a moral trade-off sort of involved in this? I mean,
I really don't think so. I think that a moral trade-off, you mean, is in the sense of losing your spirituality, your culture, those kind of things?
Yes, that and the fact that gambling can be very troublesome to some individuals.
Without an economy, I think that you don't have an opportunity to be involved in your spirituality in a sense that you can't provide the things that are needed. And with a sense of hopelessness, with the income that comes in, we have purchased land in Shakopee. We have dedicated that land for powwows, for sweat lodges, for traditional cultural things. We are also looking at educating the youth into that culture.
Okay, well.
Just one final comment. Leonard said if the state does not get into it, and that's true, if they do not get into it in video lottery, then the state will lose not only a lot of tax revenue to the casinos, but also a lot of businesses in the hospitality industry.
Okay. Thank you for your last word on that. The surge in gambling in Minnesota has led to a jump in another industry, namely treatment of compulsive gamblers. There are more than 100,000 compulsive gamblers in Minnesota, and their ranks could double in a few years. Jim Bickle has a report on this growing problem.
The study and treatment of compulsive gambling is a relatively new field. It was not included in the Diagnostic Manual of the American Psychiatric Association until 1980.
People in the field are saying treatment for compulsive gambling is about where we were with chemical dependency treatment maybe 25 years ago or so, and we're just getting started.
The first two comprehensive studies of compulsive gambling in Minnesota were done in 1990. A survey by the Minnesota Center for Addiction Studies found that 1.5% of the adults surveyed were probable or potential pathological gamblers, people who couldn't control their gambling at all. Another 7% were labeled problem gamblers. Another survey of Minnesota adolescents between ages 15 and 18 found that 6.3% were problem gamblers and 19.9% were at-risk gamblers.
I've been a widow for 9 years, and after he died, I got severely ill, and the counselor at the hospital told me I should take up bingo more and, you know, be able to, so you'd have more something to do. Well, that's all I had to hear.
Helen is currently in treatment for compulsive gambling at the Intervention Institute in North Minneapolis. While Helen didn't mind appearing on camera, 2 other members of her treatment group asked us not to show their faces. Over the last 12 years, Rick has lost between $150,000 and $200,000 betting on horses.
I've lost a relationship due to some fringe barriers of that, you know, neglect of the family or neglect of a relationship or spouse or significant other. I've lost 2 successful or money-making businesses, trouble with the IRS. I've done some things that I'm not real proud of, and that I have taken money from other people. And that's against my moral fiber, and yet I still did it because I wanted that money to go. When I had an urge to go gamble, it didn't make any difference where the money came from. I wanted to go.
Some researchers are suggesting that the electronic video gambling machines have a hypnotic effect on people.
I could sit at one of those things and all of a sudden the whole day would be gone and I wouldn't even realize it. I mean, you know, it was outrageous.
Unlike most other addictions, it's often very difficult to spot a compulsive gambler.
People don't get sick, they don't vomit, they don't fall down, they don't get DWIs. And the typical gambler is a very smart person and quite skillful at hiding his problem.
I think in my case, and a lot of cases I see come through the center here, is that we are, our basic moral system is, you know, we're dishonest people. We're very accomplished liars. I can look you right straight in the face and you cannot tell that I'm lying. And we can hide it and make up excuses. We are very inventive people.
Compulsive gamblers have to cope not only with their addiction, but also with the stress caused by losing huge sums of money.
I lost over $60,000, and I lost my children's respect. I've lost everything. I was just right down to the bottom.
Pathological gambling has been described as one of the most dangerous psychiatric disorders in terms of the numbers of persons who attempt and actually commit suicide.
When the lottery bill was passed in 1989, it included state money for additional compulsive gambling treatment facilities. And indications are those facilities will be needed. A recent study in New Jersey, where legal gambling has been around for quite a while, found that 7% of the people surveyed were identified as pathological gamblers. That's over 4 times the rate found in Minnesota.
A man named Duran Jacobs from California has described compulsive gambling as the addictive problem for the 90s, and I think he's probably right, and unfortunately, probably right in that.
For KTCA Reports, I'm Jim Bickle in Minneapolis.
To further explore the problem of compulsive gambling in Minnesota, our panelists include Michael Marcotte, who has counseled compulsive gamblers for 15 years. He is with the Intervention Institute. Rick France is a recovering compulsive gambler who, at the peak of his addiction, spent $100 a day on lottery tickets. Helen Larson was a bingo addict, losing as much as $60,000 before entering the intervention program. Michael, there's a lot of analogies drawn between this and alcoholism, you know, and many years ago, we held people who drank in contempt. Now we have compassion for them. We understand that this is a sickness, a disease. What's the analogy now between chemical dependency and compulsive gambling? Or is there any? Can we use that sort of diagram to understand the other better?
I think so, yes. As we progress into an addiction, be it alcohol or be it gambling, we start to compromise, as the gentleman on the tape mentioned, basic values. We lose a sense of who we are, dishonesty, trust, self-respect, respect of others. We cross barriers, cross lines, and do behavior that we would have never done before. A lot of people get into white-collar crime, non-sufficient checks, $1,200, $1,300, $1,500 in bad checks at a casino. The progression is much faster. When we look at alcohol, it's 10, 15, 20 years before it manifests itself. With a gambler, it can be anywhere between 3 months to 5 years of max. And we're in trouble because of the dollars that we use.
This downward spiral that he's describing is something that both the two of you have experienced. Can you tell us your story briefly?
Approximately 2 years ago, I got involved in going to Vegas 2 or 3 times a year. Would go with an X amount of dollars in mind to wager with, would not stick to it. My bonanza was when the Minnesota State Lottery started. I became a lottery player in earnest.
How often? How much money were you spending a day?
Between $300 and $500 per week, and that was counting any winnings that I had in there. And then I still continued to go to Vegas 2 or 3 times a year. So
You just couldn't drive past that convenience store with the lottery ticket.
no, it made it real easy. I stopped for gas. I'd buy 5 or 10 or how many ever I wanted that day on the way to work, on the way. I didn't have to miss work on account of this or anything like that. It was too much problem going to the casino for me.
When did you know you'd hit bottom?
Last October, I was involved in an intervention with at the Intervention Institute that my family and a very old dear friend got involved with, and they sat me down and they pointed out that this is what you have done. And I had heard it from all of them individually over the last 18 months. I had never had anything like that happen to me with all of these people, and it was a very powerful message.
When did you hit bottom, and did you have a similar circumstance?
November 15th of 91.
So just really a few months ago.
Right.
What happened to you, Helen?
I was discharged from my job and fired. I rushed home, and I was thinking very seriously about a suicide. I had done everything that I had taught my children not to do, and I just couldn't face any of it. And it was a horrible thing. And then I was taken with 911 to Abbott Northwestern Hospital, and I went through treatment there, which was fantastic. And then I started with the intervention. They found the intervention
And this
for
was
me.
from bingo?
Strictly from bingo. I was never a casino person or a lottery person, really, not that much.
What sort of things did you do? You had to go play bingo? You felt?
I was alone, home alone, and that became my second home. I knew all the collectors. I had friends that that was an out. But then later on, I'd go all by myself. It didn't make any difference if I had a friend with me or not. And every morning I'd get up and I'd say, I'm not going to go tonight. But as the time got towards that, there I was, off again.
We have a caller who has a question, I think, for the two of you. Dwight is calling us. Good evening, Dwight.
Hi, my question is, I guess, more for the average gambler, but really surprised at how much money is spent on gambling. I'm just wondering, is this money that people normally would have saved, or they were spending anyway, or does anybody have an idea of where that money was really coming from?
This was mainly money that should have been going for things like rent, car payments, groceries, and yeah, it's little basics is what I had never saved much money in my entire life. I always had something to do other than save money. But in my case, it went. My gambling money should have been used for essentials.
I understand that right off the bat, you won quite a bit of money, Helen.
Yes, I won $20,500 out at Little Six.
And how long?
And to me, that was the worst thing I could have done, because that really gave me the urge to go onward, to
You're
win
nodding,
more.
Michael. Is this as a big win fuel compulsion?
Yeah, many gamblers will tell you that basically the worst thing that could happen for them is to win, because basically that sets the hook. And through gambling, intermittent wins keep us going. It's like,
Now, we've heard so much about how much more we are gambling in Minnesota. Are we seeing this predicted rise in the number of compulsive gamblers?
I think we are. I think we're seeing it. I'm seeing adolescents that the probation officers are bringing in, truant officers. High schools are calling me. Conditioning is going on in Minnesota. We've got scratch-offs and fast foods for children, and they'll want to go to whichever fast food will get the best prizes and those kinds of things. And we're gambling neutral. We're not saying it's bad or it's good, but basically we have to have more resources to help these. I'd love to work with the Indian tribes and the casinos and the charitable gambling industries to help us, because basically there's a part they can help us with. Unfortunately, up until this point, I've never met these people that they don't answer our calls.
We have a caller calling tonight. Bill has a question or comment. Good evening, Bill.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question for you in terms of I sympathize with the people and I understand they have a problem, but I'm in favor of gambling. But my question is who disperses funds for the people that need help? Is this something that possibly snowballs? Is the state going to have the brunt of this?
And wasn't that part of the deal? In order to
That's
get the
part of-
lottery,
that's part of the
money
deal.
would be
The
set aside?
lottery, Minnesota over this last biennium has been allowed $1.4 million, $700,000 a year for the treatment of compulsive gamblers. Now that includes research, education, prevention, the hotline.
I think you're telling me it's a drop in the bucket.
Well, it's 1.5 days of the lottery. I'm really grateful to the state for helping us, but we need more help. There's a lot of people in need. At the Intervention Institute for the past year and a half, we've been doing a formal treatment program that we've been funding ourselves, and now we've just started to receive some funds from the state of Minnesota. I'd like to address one thing when we talk about the dark side of gambling. There's two dark sides. There's things that are realistic, and I can tell you stories that I probably couldn't talk about on TV about what's going on in the gambling industry. But on the other side, the other dark side is what's happening to social fiber. The people who are losing homes, losing jobs, placed on welfare systems, AFDC, unemployment.
You're telling us that's
who are
happening.
gambling
That's reality.
those dollars at the casinos.
We have another call now from Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hello.
Your question?
I'm wondering where you're going to draw the line on determining what is a vice. You say that you have to stop people from doing compulsive activities. Well, do you intend to close down malls for compulsive shoppers, close down bars because people are alcoholics? If people are compulsive gamblers, they'll go to Las Vegas or they'll drive to Wisconsin to buy their lottery tickets.
Okay.
That's an excellent question, and no, we're not drawing any lines, but what we're saying is basically there are some people who are going to get hurt in this industry, as some people are experiencing trouble with alcohol, and some people are compulsive
How
spenders.
about the two of you? Both of you have paid a great personal price. Are you bitter? I mean, should this not exist?
I want to say that I'm not that type of person. I wasn't. I was the most honest person in how I taught my children and everything. But I got into it, and I could not stop it. It is a compulsion. But like Mike pointed out to me, it's a sickness. You are sick.
And you had something to add.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I think Mike mentioned it earlier, I'm gambling neutral at this point. I don't believe it should be outlawed.
No.
I no longer have the right, or it overtook me. So I can no longer sit down and scratch a ticket. No, I don't believe it should be outlawed. But I also do believe that with a state-run lottery like this, or gambling, I believe they do have a certain amount of responsibility to release some funds for the percentage of the population that this is going to affect, and greatly, I might add.
And it's like again drinking. So he
Well,
can't
Rick
buy
can
one
address
ticket.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Very
also,
quickly, though.
I'm also a recovering alcoholic, and
So some of these issues go hand in hand.
they go
Talk
hand in
about the
hand.
compulsions.
Right.
And we see a lot of recovering alcoholics who talk about recovery from their alcohol was a cakewalk next to
Compared
this.
to this. Okay. Well, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, keep up the good work. It sounds like there'll be plenty more of it. Thank you both for telling us your stories.
Thank you.
Before we leave tonight, a quick update on last week's KTCA reports. That program asked you to phone in your verdict on whether Minnesota should have a death penalty. You swamped our answering machines with your thoughts, and your final verdict on the question was 185 in favor of a death penalty and 64 against it. Recent polls show that as many as 70% of Minnesotans would support a death penalty. And next week on KTCA Reports, the story of Minnesota kids in crisis. For some Minnesota youngsters, the problems of poverty begin before they are born. We'll detail issues from problem pregnancies to rural children going hungry to schools with annual student turnover rates of 60% and greater. Experts in the field of child development, welfare, politicians, and child caregivers will be here to try and find solutions to tough problems facing many children in Minnesota. It's not an easy topic, but I'm sure it's one you'll want to learn more about. That's next Tuesday night at 9 o'clock here on Channel 2. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kevyn Berger. Good night.
Major funding for this edition of KTCA Reports is provided by the McKnight Foundation, responding to the needs of individuals and communities. Additional funding is provided by Ryder, Bennett, Egan, and Arundel, providing timely, aggressive, and cost-effective legal services.